What's up, guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin, and welcome back to another version of our holiday buyer's guide. Today we are talking everything spinnerbaits and chatterbaits.
Spinnerbaits and chatterbaits are two of those staple baits in any bass fisherman's arsenal. Again, like some of these other buyer's guides, it's a giant topic. Our goal here today is to completely narrow it down from the thousands of options to just the handful that we use consistently. And we're going to give you a brief idea behind each one of those baits, because when you understand what they're for, it makes it really easy to choose the right ones for you.
Yeah, both these categories are ginormous: spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, bladed jigs. I guess I'll go ahead and start.
Let's start with spinnerbaits.
Okay, we pulled two full-size spinnerbaits. These are your traditional full-size spinnerbaits. Got the, that's the Terminator T1. That's a stainless steel spinnerbait. That's gonna be your everyday spinnerbait. And then you got the Demiki. This is the TOT. It's a lot thinner blades, a lot of vibration. They both come in great colors. They got good keeper systems on them. But if you want to just try spinnerbait fishing, these are two really good places to start.
Nice. I break my spinnerbaits out into basically three categories. You got full size, which is those, and then mid size and finesse. And if you treat spinnerbaits that way, it's not so complicated, right? You just find a favorite in each of those categories and you can fish any situation. I spend the bulk of my time throwing those mid-size spinnerbaits. And this year, both of these are brand new because they were not on the market last year. The first one here, this is the Nichols Catalyst, mid-size spinnerbait. What I really like about this bait is two things. They plated the heads, so they're either silver heads or gold heads, and they put a really good keeper barb on it. Nichols makes incredible spinnerbaits, incredible finishes, but this is the only one of the ones I throw that has a keeper, and that is a really nice addition. If you're a Nichols guy, you can appreciate that. But that's a killer mid-size, mid-framed spinnerbait. And then the other one, this is from Shimano. This is the Swagey Strong. And we did a review on this one not too long ago. Actually, we reviewed both of those recently. The Swagey Strong was one that surprised me. It's gorgeous. I mean, the paint job on it is amazing. Hand-tied skirt looks amazing. It's got really unique blades in that they're thin, not thin material, but they're not very wide blades. So it's a very tight action. I was surprised when I started using this bait how much vibration it had. You can actually feel, like a chatterbait, they vibrate hard. You feel it in your rod. Some spinnerbaits you feel, some you don't. I really feel this spinnerbait. It's pulling and thumping out there on the end of that rod. And I really like that feel because it's just,
You're more
connected. You know what's going on. You can picture what's happening out there, and it's a lot easier to stick with it and get those bites when you're getting good positive feedback out of the bait.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about what a spinnerbait is trying to mimic, right? Why are you throwing a spinnerbait versus an underspin or something like that? A spinnerbait with these extra blades on there, you're mimicking a little school of bait fish, right? And what's cool about a spinnerbait, you add a ton of flash, a ton of vibration. It's fairly weedless. I mean, you can fish these things right around grass edges, through reeds, tules, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, without a stinger, you can throw them through anything.
So you're mimicking, it was kind of the A-rig before the A-rig, right? You're mimicking a small school of bait fish.
Yeah.
And with that said, you'll notice that all the spinnerbaits that we pulled for this video all have willow style blades versus Colorado or Indiana. Now, this isn't gonna be a full seminar where we're gonna go into that, but we like the willows. We like the vibration, the feel that these baits have.
Yeah, if you're gonna pick up one spinnerbait, make it a double willow.
Yep.
Just leave it at that.
Last category, I guess we'll call this what, like a finesse spinnerbait?
Yeah.
This is the Megabass SV3, a real compact spinnerbait. Still mimicking a small ball of bait fish, but you have the longer skirt material, so you don't necessarily have, we're going to talk trailers here in just a second, but you don't have to necessarily put a skirt on that bait right there.
A trailer on that bait.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Because of the skirt, you don't have to put a trailer on there. But again, Megabass, you get that quality, you get the paint schemes. That is a beautiful little spinnerbait right there. And what's nice about this, you know, versus the full size, this is a really compact bait. You can throw it on a shorter rod, a lighter rod, lighter line. So you don't have to really power fish like you would with the bigger full-size spinnerbaits. That guy right there is a real fun, fast-moving spinnerbait.
You know, it's funny. You think finesse spinnerbait, full-size spinnerbait, your immediate thought would be like, oh, smaller fish, finesse spinnerbait. Oh, big, muddy water.
Big
I
phobia.
have destroyed largemouth in Florida on the SV3. When a lot of people throw a spinnerbait, throw a small one. Makes a big difference. Let's talk trailers. If you don't mind, I'll just hammer this out and we'll switch categories. For trailers, super simple. I have two for you. If you're throwing full frame spinnerbaits, 4.3 Kitech is a really, really good option. Not a 4.8. If you use a 4.8, the tail comes around and hooks a lot. But the 4.3 is just a little shorter. It gives you a full profile and the tail's not so long that it's always fouling up. That's a really good option. The other one, you can still use it on full frames, but it really shines on those medium frame spinnerbaits, is that Damiki 4-inch armor shad. It's a more subtle bait, little more natural kick, not that big Kitech kick, just a little more natural kick, so it doesn't overwhelm the baits. Works really well on the mid-size, also works really well on 3/8 size. Like if you're throwing a full size but 3/8 ounce, a Kitech can blow that bait out. For a 1/2 ounce or more, Kitech's great. But if you're going lighter, go with that Damiki armor shad. And then last, a stinger hook. More often than not, I don't use a stinger hook. I find that if I've got a swim bait on my spinnerbait, they aim for that swim bait so well, it eliminates the need. But there are times where it helps, and sometimes there are baits like the SV3 where you just don't add a trailer at all, and you can sneak a hook in there no problem. This is a unique hook I started using last year that I've been really, really happy with. That's that Gamakatsu Stinger trailer. It's got an odd bend to it, unlike any other spinnerbait trailer hook, but I really like it. And it comes in some smaller sizes, so you can pair it really well to some of those smaller spinnerbaits. The size 1 or the 1/0 are your key sizes. The 1/0 is what I could put on any of them and go.
Yeah, real quick on that armor shad. Can't really tell in the package, but this is a lot narrower swim bait than the Kitech.
Yeah, it's a lot less bait.
It is, and it doesn't, if you're trying to burn a spinnerbait, I really like that narrower trailer. Let's jump over to Chatterbaits.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Chatterbaits, bladed jigs, whatever you want to call it. Z-Man kind of has the deal with Chatterbaits. I mean,
Well, they don't kind of have the deal. They own the patent.
Yeah, they do.
That.
So I'm going to start at the top. The 95% of the time I'm throwing a chatterbait, I'm throwing the jackhammer. Yeah. Jackhammer's been out now for several years. It is just top of the line, everything. Wire keeper, you know, for the skirt, stout hooks. You know, when I'm looking for a chatterbait or a bladed jig, I want a bait that the blade starts fairly quickly on my casts. The chatterbait, the jackhammer just has great colors, and I've caught so many big fish on the jackhammer. I don't even know what else to say besides, if you are a bladed jig or chatterbait fisherman, you need to try the jackhammer. You know, they're not overrated. They are worth the money. And again, lots of big fish on that guy. Yeah,
it's an expensive bait, but it's not an overpriced bait. If you're serious about a chatterbait, that's a bait you need to throw. I'm going to talk about the Stealth Blade. The Stealth Blade is that exact same jackhammer frame, but with a completely different lip. So a chatterbait has a metal blade on it. This is different. It is a smaller, significantly smaller, and it's plastic or polycarbonate or something. Whatever it is, it's a smaller blade, the result is a much tighter action. The first day that I picked one up and tried it, I was like, I made a couple of casts and I thought, oh, that's not what I was expecting. I'm used to that chatterbait, thump, 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 and this was like thump, 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 thump.
Yeah, real
just
quick.
Tighter.
Yep.
I wasn't super impressed on day one. Later, I got on a bite and I was crushing chatterbait fish and the bite started to fade. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna pick that back up and try it. Lights out. I massacred the chatterbait bite I thought was fading. It wasn't. When I switched that stealth blade, I slaughtered, and I slaughtered for days in a row. It was amazing. Since then, I always have a stealth blade ready to go. The jackhammer is my main bait as well, but I've always got a stealth blade ready to rock, and not just in clear water. I have crushed in filthy, muddy, nasty water on the stealth blade when other people are also throwing a jackhammer. If I come out and I see, you know, before a tournament, you see a bunch of chatterbaits on deck, obviously the fish have been seeing them, I go to a stealth blade.
It's a completely different vibration. It's a different, I mean, just like lipless cranks, right? You have different sounds, different vibrations. Same thing with that smaller, narrower blade.
Yeah.
Next up, I'm going to talk about this guy right here. This is actually a Z-Man product. This is the naked, what do they call it?
Naked chatterbait.
It's just the naked chatterbait. I referenced this in a video, I don't know,
months
a few months ago.
Yeah.
I like throwing just your basic head with a swim bait on it. So you're getting the swim bait action with added vibration, kind of like throwing an underspin, right? You're adding a little extra flash. This is the same type of deal, except you're adding that flash and vibration. You can fish it. It's super weedless, but this comes in a 2-pack, I believe. But rig your favorite 3.8, 4.3, 4.8 size swim bait on a chatterbait head.
Nice. Last but not least, when this bait came out, I freaked out about it. I did. This is my favorite chatterbait to hit because every year it seems like there's some new variation for a different purpose. When this guy came out, this is the Mini Max. Look at it next to a jackhammer. Way, way smaller. Smaller blade, smaller hook by a landslide. So there have been a handful of varieties of downsized chatterbaits, but never one that had premium components and a stout hook. Even though the hook is smaller, it's not light wire at all. It's a stout hook, and there was a hole in the market waiting for this bait. I love throwing downsized profiles. I throw them a lot in the fall. I also throw them in smaller fisheries, smaller natural lakes, ponds. When we're kayaking in the rivers, that downsized chatterbait crushes them. Now it takes downsized trailers, and we'll get to that, but it takes a downsized trailer to pair up to them. But when you do that, that whole downsized package is deadly. And if I was going to speak to every guy in the country, the majority of guys fish in places where they would benefit from a downsized chatterbait.
Right.
And a lot of them never try it. That Mini Max is an awesome option.
Yeah, back in the day when I was clear, you know, Highland Reservoir clear water fishing, I would go and buy those real tiny chatterbaits.
Yeah, like from Walmart.
Yeah, Kmart and stuff, and I would catch big spotted bass on it.
Yep.
Trailers, since you just talked about, why don't you talk about that since you just talked about the Mini Max?
Sure.
And we'll go through trailers.
Yeah, hand me that one. Yeah. So I think we grabbed 4 different trailers for different situations. First one here, the Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim On. The Swim On has a forked tail, and when you rig it, they're rigged vertically so that the fork is standing up like a fish tail. When you swim this thing through the water, those tails are moving, and they're not moving together, they're moving separate. It looks so good, it's crazy. That is my favorite profile in a chatterbait trailer. I love the way that thing looks. We saw it, it's one thing to catch piles of fish on them. You don't know why one works better than the other. We saw it in some of our underwater footage and were blown away. It was clear as a bell why it was working so well. The Swim On comes in a couple of sizes. The 4.25, that's what you throw on the jackhammer or a stealth blade, that standard size. But they have a smaller size that pairs up like a dream on that Mini Max, and that's a killer trailer option for that bait.
I'm going to talk about the Yamamoto Zako or Zako. This is one of my favorite stealth blade and full-size chatterbait trailers. It's kind of got a ribbed tail section, but then it actually has the padded tail. It comes in two different versions. I actually like the paddle tail more. Watching our underwater footage, it just does more underwater. But this is my go-to, especially like in Florida, stained water. I love the colors from Yamamoto. This one's actually called, what is it called? I'll link it down below.
That's Zako. That is literally Zako.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, there you go. I'll link it down below in the video description. But it just pairs up perfectly with that size. It mimics your baby crappie, your bluegill, your kind of smaller panfish, bait fish. That guy right there is money. And then
throw me that one. Let me do that one.
Yep.
Because if I do that one, we're going to be here all day. So I'm just going to stay out of it.
okay.
This is the NetBait Paca Slim. There is a time when I want my chatterbait to look like a minnow. There's a time where I want it to look like a bluegill. There's a time I want it to look like a crawfish. When I want a crawfish trailer, hands down that Paca Slim is my trailer. But I will say this, the Paca Slim comes in two sizes. I only use the 4-inch as a chatterbait trailer. The reason why is that the 4-inch has these big exaggerated claws. The smaller size bait has smaller claws, and I prefer those big claws on the back of the chatterbait. What I like so much about this trailer over all the other craw profiles is that the action that comes out of it, it has a ton of action, but it's also random action. It's not this steady kick.
Yeah.
All of a sudden one will break out and do these big waves and then come back in. And there is something to be said, just like we pause a crankbait when we're in our retrieve to break up the cadence, there's something to be said for that chatterbait running along and all of a sudden it does something different. So that is hands down my favorite trailer when I want that craw profile.
All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about the Hog Farmer, the Spunk Shad. Comes in two different sizes. You'll notice that this doesn't have any craw on it at all, no tail on it at all, but where this really stood out was in our underwater footage. The way that it works with the skirt, with the bait, the vibration of the chatterbait itself, it's just down there. It looks amazing, and it's a fish catcher. Comes in some great colors. For the longest time, this was our #1 trailer on. It still is.
It still is mine for sure.
Yeah, I go back and forth between this and the Zako, but that is another different. If you're trying to look different than what everybody else is throwing on their trailers, a lot of guys are throwing swim baits, a lot of guys are throwing this or that. Try that Spunk Shad. You guys won't be disappointed.
I'm going to add a little bit. I thought I could stay out of it. I promise to keep it brief. So two sizes, 4.5 and 5.5, but that's a personal preference, trying to match size of bait. I use both the exact same amount. Both are killer. What makes this bait so special to me, other than that tail back there doing its thing,
right,
is the shape of the bait doesn't interrupt the chatterbait at all. What I mean is that with this particular trailer, I love to chop and work the reel. So it's not just a steady retrieve. With some of these baits, like if you have a paddle tail, if you go to start working it and playing with it, it can only do so much because the tail is still dragging water. Where this is slimming down, I can pop it, snap the rod tip, bump that reel, and that bait will cut and dart and dance. And because it's just slimming down, you never know which way it's going to go. It's all over the place, and it just triggers bites. I love that trailer.
Yeah, we had to really simplify it for you, but these are the baits that we throw. These are the spinnerbaits, the chatterbaits, the trailers, the swim baits. Let's talk rods and reels real quick.
Yeah, let's start with spinnerbait.
Okay.
Spinnerbait rods.
Okay.
I'll go high end since you grabbed budget. My favorite spinnerbait rod across the board, if I was just gonna grab one, nobody will be surprised by this because I talk about MBRs in half of our buyer's guide series. The 844C MBR, this is the GLX, but you can get it in an NRX Plus, you can get it in a GLX, you can get it in an IMX Pro. You can't get it in GCX. You get the 843, but not the 844. That 844C MBR is such a universal rod that I use for a lot of things. And one of my favorite things to do with it is throw a spinnerbait. I throw it with a Metanium DC. It's a high-end combo. But a DC reel just makes fishing that thing a dream. I love DC digital control technology for a spinnerbait because that's one bait that can be really affected by the wind. Those blades are flying through the air, so DC is adjusting for you while that bait's flying, and I avoid a lot of backlashes by throwing a spinnerbait in the wind on DC.
Combo that I grabbed is going to be an SLX combo. This is a 7'2" heavy rod paired up with an SLX. Now the reason that I went with a little shorter rod, for me, when I'm fishing a spinnerbait, I'm usually making target casts. Like I'm fishing through you know, this little grass patch, or I'm fishing around this dock piling or this laydown. I'm making casts to isolated pieces of cover or structure. That's why I like the shorter rod. But if you're looking for a budget-friendly combo that will allow you to fish all of these spinnerbaits, that 7'2" will get you covered.
Why don't you do that one too, and then I'll wrap it up here.
Okay, as far as chatterbaits, yeah, as far as chatterbaits, I spent a ton of time this year throwing this rod right here. This is the IMX Pro 883 bladed jig rod. It's got a nice little picture of a chatterbait on there. If you,
in case you're confused,
can't read, yeah, want to look at the pictures. But this rod, like I said, I spent a lot of time with it. Caught some big fish on it. I didn't lose any fish, and that's really, really important. You know, a lot of these rods, you can throw a spinnerbait or a chatterbait on any rod if you want, but they're not built for that. You know, they don't load deep into the rod. They don't keep that fish pegged. And what I can say about this one is I didn't lose any fish. The action, it was heavy enough in the medium mid section of the rod. It was heavy enough to really bury those hooks. Fishing down in Florida, fishing bigger baits, that sort of thing. Braid to leader. Didn't have any issues, didn't lose any fish, and it's a very comfortable rod to fish. Paired up with a Metanium, that is my day in and day out bread and butter reel. Doesn't get much better than that. Typically, if I'm fishing, 90% of the time I'm throwing braid to leader. Braid to mono leader on my bladed jigs and my spinnerbaits. If you are worried about, you know, fish seeing line, being line shy, you can go with straight fluoro when you're throwing the little stealth blade or whatever, but for the most part I'm throwing braid to leader.
I'm the exact same, braid to leader, and that is hands down, that is both of our favorite bladed jig rod, but you're going to pay for it, right? That combo, you're pushing $800.
Yeah, it's not
it's a high dollar combo. That is why we kept looking, trying to find another option that was really good for people, and we arrived here. Shimano X Pride, which we've said over and over is the best bang for the buck at any price. You're high 200s in this rod, and this rod sensitivity is off the chart. They're super lightweight. They fish like a $400 or $500 rod. This is the 7.2 medium heavy glass. That glass is key for that chatterbait. 7.2 medium heavy glass gives you that slower action that you need. If you're fishing a chatterbait around grass, one of the key ways that you get bit is breaking a chatterbait loose from the grass. If you're throwing on a really stout rod with braid and you try to pop out of the grass, it blows out of there so fast that the fish can't grab it during that moment, and you miss a huge window of opportunity where a lot of bites come. By going to that glass rod, when you pop out, there's a moment where it stalls out. The bait breaks free and it stalls out before it starts to pull. And that moment right there is where a lot of key chatterbait bites happen. So this is a really good rod for that. I paired it up with the Corrado 150 MGL, which, same as the rod, is a freakish reel for its price. You can dump the spool on the 150 MGL. You can cast so far with that reel. It's remarkable. And then that pairing is just insane. So if you've got the budget and you want a super high-end chatterbait rod that just cannot be beat, hands down, that's it. If you want a bang for the buck rod that is just mind-blowing for throwing one, it'll save you, I mean, it's still an expensive combo, but it'll save you a solid $300. and it's an amazing chatterbait rod. I throw both. When I go out, I typically have both rigged up with different baits. Typically one with a jackhammer, one with a stealth blade. But they're just both killer options.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about the glass thing, because that when you rip that bait through that grass, having that rod load slower, it kind of slingshots that bait. It starts up and then goes.
Yep.
And if you do it on too fast of a tip, you take that bait away from the strike zone on that grass edge too fast away from those bass. So as that bait kind of speeds up and starts to take off, that's when those bass hunt it down.
They're on it. You want to wrap us up?
Sure. Guys, if you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. We'll try to get to those. But we really tried to narrow it down, give you some honest options, confidence baits in both spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. And down in the video description, we will pair everything for you, our favorite colors, favorite sizes, all that good stuff, so that you can send this video to your loved ones and have them pick out the right baits for you during the holidays. Guys, like I said, if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. We'll try to get to those as soon as possible. As always, thanks for watching. If you learned something from this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next video.